If you enjoy what you're hearing and find it valuable, like, comment, and share. It's Ultra Life. Today, I'm Josh Bell. We're talking about brain health, cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's, what you can do about it. I just want to start this once again by saying there's massive hope. Some simple things you can do related to exercise, supplementation, related to things you can do to retrain your brain and help it stay on track. And even I've heard great stories recently in an interview I saw about people reversing some pretty bad cases of dementia. And so I promised earlier that we'd have a cameo appearance from one of our favorite people, the founder of Ultra Botanica. Adam Payne is joining us this time with Keith Bishop, retired pharmacist, clinical nutritionist.
I'm serious.
Yeah. And
this guy is one of my favorite people.
Now it's going to turn into like, I thought of a name for you the other day, Adam. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was Adam Payne, the science brain. Because you got Bill Nye, the science guy, right? So it's Adam Payne, the science brain. So welcome, Mr. Science, to Ultra Life today.
Thank you. I hope to
your own show.
I hope to live up to somebody's expectations today.
Okay, so
where are we at?
Yeah, Keith, I'm going to throw out about 3 things that maybe will help us move on into this section of supplementation and everything I've learned about it. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Are there simple exercises, brain exercises that people can do that actually demonstrate that you can begin to improve your recall and your brain function?
Yes, definitely. Besides the physical exercise of walking and weight training, resistance training, HIIT, high intensity interval training, those physical kind of things, yes, and because the brain's going to control the muscles, and the muscles are giving feedback and the nerves back to the brain. But even more simple things of puzzles. And
so jigsaw puzzles, crossword puzzles?
Yeah, crossword puzzles.
Anything work in the brain?
Yeah, although anything that we're working on something with our hands and our eyes, it helps with the brain. Music, playing music, not listening to music, but playing music. You know, being a musician or learning to become a musician, you know, even if you're not good at it. You know, but that all is exercising the brain, making the brain do new things.
I love this topic. There was a documentary about neuroplasticity that came out, I think, almost a decade ago, that blew my world up completely. I'm not in the space of kind of like rehabilitation medicine, but we've been working with a lot of doctors in aging and regenerative medicine, like the UltraCure product being kind of like our flagship in aging and regeneration. But what I like to say is that we all know the feeling of creating new neural pathways in our brain. We know the feeling. It's an unpleasant feeling. It's that feeling of, I can't quite get my brain to do what I'm trying it to do, but I'm going to kind of force it to get there.
Yeah.
And we know that feeling. It's the same feeling. We learned it because when we're babies and we can't move our arms and we can barely get them into our face.
Keep getting up and walking because I want what's on that table over there.
Just moving my hand to the place I want it to go is that baby developing neural pathways to control the arm.
And it moves, like we talked about earlier, Adam, it moves to habit and even passion and conviction as you develop these new neural
and then
pathways.
Trust in your ability to do something, right? So there was a documentary about people that had strokes. And so the conventional wisdom, I think up to that point, was in rehabilitation, well, we're just going to have to, if you had like a stroke on your left side of your body, we're just going to have to teach you how to live your life with the right side of your body, right? Because your left side's gone, and now we're going to teach you to use the right side. And these, these neurologists, they did the exact opposite. They're like, you know what? We're going to help that brain create new neural pathways to the bad side of the body. So they would actually bind up the good side and make them struggle to try to move, just even touch the block on the table.
How intense is that? Goodness.
And what happens is they developed new neural pathways. to a side of their body that had become completely disconnected from their brain.
So, so Keith, we talked about exercise earlier, and I know we'll keep circling the wagons back to that. Yeah. You and I were made aware of a study that's been done talking about body strength in the lower extremities, so the legs, the calves, and how progressive resistance weight training actually creates this unique opportunity, or they've proven it now, basically. I mean, they all but proved it in this study that it's a phenomenal way, lower leg strength, to be able to really just boom, neural pathways exhilarated and exploding. What do you know about that?
This seems a little far-fetched. Explain. Well, Keith, so what's your thought?
Well, once again, it's the exercise,
Yep.
and it's a combination of blood supply,
Yep.
And pumping and pumping the blood up to the heart. I mean, the heart pumping the blood rather, but also that's going to go up to the brain, improve circulation to the brain. Learning, and making the nerve cells work, is going to be part of that. But part of it is going to be, I'm going to go back to circulation. So another older study actually, and I'm not blessed with large calf size, but actually a small calf size is related to an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, heart attack and strokes.
Oh, interesting.
Intriguing.
And so
from a small calf size.
Small calf. And it has to do with the muscles and the fats that are in that calf. I've exercised. I've done everything I can. I can't increase that. So, matter of fact, my son-in-law, the coach, he says, "Oh yeah, you should. It'll work." No, it won't. Okay, and so there's some genetics involved in that, but I still do it. So even though I don't have that large muscle mass, actually I have some nutrient absorption issues that probably compounded that too. Over the years.
And I love progressive resistance training for a variety of reasons. Our good friend Kyle Drew and I talk about it a lot on the radio, and it's great for bone health. It's great for everything. I've seen some phenomenal studies done with elderly people in nursing homes, just beginning with the lightest weights and pushing themselves up in a chair, not even standing up, and then their bone density gets better after 6 weeks and 8 weeks.
That's
it's
so
incredible.
cool.
Right, even just doing, while I'm waiting on my coffee to brew, I'll do modified push-ups against the kitchen counter.
Oh my God!
When I'm brushing when I'm brushing my teeth, I'll do heel, I'll do heel raises, and when I'm flossing, I'll go into a squat. And even I've had both my hips replaced. I don't want to wear that out,
right?
So I will go down into a squat and just hold it while I'm flossing.
You've created a very interesting mental picture about your morning ablutions and habits, Keith. I'm just telling you. It's like I'm seeing Keith making coffee while he's pouring a cup, while he's doing
I'm carrying
squats.
the coffee grounds outside. I'm using that as a weight, and trying to take advantage of that moment.
That's cool, though. I love that you're being present and thinking about little things you can do. Our friend Kyle Drew tells the most amazing story about a lady that heard him preaching on Doug Kaufman's show one day. If you can't even get from the kitchen table to the couch, go from the kitchen table to the chair in between. And she sent them a video months later. She was in her 80s, I think, and had completely changed her life, changed her weight, was walking around the block. That one little first step. So being present, thinking about what you can do. If you're sitting, think about what you can do to go pick that thing up. So it's
kind of making the most of each moment is what you're trying to do.
Absolutely, living in the moment. Boom.
So for those that still watch TV that's got commercials on, when the commercial comes on, it's time to get up.
Interesting.
Even if you can just stand up and sit back down, stand up, sit back down. Every time that commercial comes on, you've got to get up and do something.
Awesome.
It's better than doing that like a drinking game, Well, that was the college version of this.
And what I love about what you just said, and again, it's a theme constantly among me and some friends when we're talking about it. Just the one little thing that you can begin to do actually is that first steps toward the potential of optimal health. It really is. And they have actually done studies on these people that just get up in between a commercial or go do this or go do that just in their own house, and they live longer and they're healthier.
That's right.
It's incredible.
It's really interesting. What you're talking about is gaming yourself.
Yeah.
And essentially you're turning every moment into a game that I can optimize my health in
Little
this process.
self-challenge.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
So-
great.
so Keith,
have you ever made a list of like those kind of game things that you do, Keith? Because that would be kind of fun to circulate.
Well,
I never have.
I can't unsee what he told me about
Well, I
what
mean,
he does
standing
in the
up and
morning
sitting
when he's
down
brushing
with-
his teeth.
yep.
So,
In my underwear.
So, well,
oh, now that's even
Now it's
okay.
better.
Took it to a whole new level. Anyway, so supplementation, Keith. And again, I was such a neophyte on brain health, and I still am. But after seeing this interview with Mr. Holford out of Cambridge, I think, in England, I was blown away about how simple the protocol can actually be for individuals to supplement, and you get a bonus with some of these of cardiovascular health as well. But the supplementation issue, what are the key nutrients that play the biggest roles in an individual who is already showing signs of some cognitive decline? And what are the key supplements that you, Keith Bishop, would say, today, here's my list, here's where you go?
Okay. So number one, we have to get our proteins. Okay. So brain chemicals come from protein and fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals. And so it's really what we eat and how well you're absorbing that. But you have to have protein. One of the most common things I find in senior citizens is not enough protein.
Absolutely. And in women. I've learned that from
women,
Kyle Drew.
Yeah, it's very common. And
it's because those proteins break down into the essential amino acids that turn into neurotransmitters.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
So we need that support.
That's correct.
But people are going to totally miss the boat if you don't give them some way to determine how many grams of protein they're going to need in a day. And especially, let's address the women issue as well.
Right. Yeah. So
and the elderly.
Officially, it's supposed to be 50 grams of protein a day for the average person.
Is average like maybe 150, 160,
That's right. So I'm looking at Adam.
pounds?
So he's going to require a lot more protein than me. Okay. So now my favorite things, actually, I'd like to just say a palm rule. And so
my palm is bigger than your palm.
Exactly.
So, right?
So
there you
therefore
go.
you need more.
I do.
Okay. So for one meal, that is basically, if it's going to be animal protein, we need a serving of meat or eggs that's the size and thickness of the palm of our hand for one meal. We need that 3 times a day.
Okay.
That's quite a bit.
It doesn't have to be meat, but that's actually just adjusting for your body size. So the little tiny 100-pound female, and there's definitely a lot of them out there, they may not need that 50 grams a day on average, but somebody that has a lot more muscle, a lot bigger, they're going to need more protein. So some of these larger guys and some women are going to need more than 50 grams a day. But so basically it's kind of like a palm-sized serving of protein per meal.
If you don't go
if it's meat.
If you don't go too far above your palm rule 3 times a day, eggs, fish, chicken, beef, whatever that may be that you're taking protein, even supplementing with a hemp protein or a whey protein or
protein powders
or vegan protein if you're a vegan. Vegans out there, remember that you'll absorb about 30% less of a vegan protein. So if it says X number of grams of protein, you're actually going to have to bump that up to be able to get the protein
You're
requirements.
talking about absorbable or functional protein.
Yeah, exactly. But so a lot of people are worried about overdosing on things, on supplements,
Sure.
even on protein. And I know there is an upper limit related to protein, but if an individual goes above 50 grams a day, up to 70 grams a day, you're really not doing any major harm, right?
Not unless you have kidney disease.
Right. Yeah, the kidneys are the
kidneys
big
are
outlier.
the
there.
last filtering, issue, and so that is a potential issue for that. So now also along that line, so to make sure you get enough protein, so if you're a vegan and you're going to be doing beans or legumes, it's going to be double that palm rule. So there's more like 2 palms, or
Gotcha.
a minimum of 1 cup for one meal is about 15 grams of protein. So protein is going to be probably number 1, and the most common thing I find in my clients is not enough protein for somebody that is starting to have some signs with some cognitive issues. they're not thinking right anyway. So they
and that wouldn't have been on my list. So I'm so
Okay.
glad that you right out of the chute you said protein.
Yeah, protein.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's number 2 on
Number
terms
2.
of the supplement?
a
Circle
supplement.
here.
Going back to the supplement.
Yeah, the supplement
so
circle.
supplement is curcumin.
Curcumin. Well,
And so-
that's interesting.
So curcumin
I
is
promise he's not plugging us.
no, no.
He has
but-
believed in curcumin since before I met him.
Yeah.
After he met us, though, he does believe in ours. So anyway.
So curcumin, so many functions for the brain. We don't have time to list that, but a couple of basic things is anti-inflammatory. Which inflammation can actually contribute to depression and anxiety, as we mentioned in another episode. And even progression of some dementia issues. So it's an anti-inflammatory, but also it seems to help chelate and trap excess copper.
Yeah.
And iron.
And iron,
and which can be
And heavy metals, right.
oxidative, damaging chemicals, and helps trap those and help eliminate those.
So
I'm glad you brought
Adam,
up
you
curcumin.
schooled me on systemic inflammation and even inflammation in the brain and
right.
neuroplasticity.
Right.
Weigh in on this.
I'm so glad you brought up curcumin. Obviously, for a lot of reasons, our company.
I didn't
Ultravotanica,
realize that was going to be on his list. That's amazing.
Our flagship kind of the product that we started with as a company was our curcumin whey protein conjugate, our LPS technology, liquid protein scaffolding that binds curcumin to the protein. Not because for the protein content, but because we use protein as a way to shuttle these bioactive plant compounds into the body. What
and I
happens
might
is
add
the body
quickly and at elevated
very,
levels.
very quickly,
Incredible.
and at levels that just normal formulations haven't been able to achieve. The closest is the Danish technology and the phytosome that's out there. I think they're pretty decent competitors. Regardless, we've done studies. We show one of our first university studies was looking at gut permeability of the conjugate, and we showed that curcumin bound to the amino acid or the protein goes right through the gut.
Beautiful.
But more importantly, it also goes through the blood-brain barrier. So we were able to show scientifically that not only would the curcumin get into our tissues, but it would also go into the central nervous system. We kind of figured it did, because the first time we tried curcumin, we got something called the curcumin buzz.
Yep.
Did you ever have a curcumin buzz? Like the first time you took UltraCur Pro?
Not
Do you
that I
ever remember?
Uh-uh.
So a lot of people report
did.
kind of this buzz, this feeling of like, wow, the world has changed.
It's kind of a bit of a euphoria and just kind of a.
Maybe no, I wouldn't call it
Well,
euphoric, but
for
it
me
was
it
a
was.
buzz, right? Okay, we're all different.
Absolutely.
And what it told me was that not only was the curcumin getting into our bodies, but it was getting into the central nervous system. The only way
Cool.
to feel that thing was it was getting into the central nervous system. And this is important because for brain health, inflammation in the brain has been shown recently to be one of the major contributors to depression, to Alzheimer's disease,
The
to
bipolar version of depression. Yep.
Many of these central nervous system ailments are actually inflammation is potentially the core underlying reason why these different diseases are occurring. So getting curcumin into the central nervous system is a big step towards alleviating, ameliorating, balancing. You name it. You choose the adjective or the pronoun you want to, or the adverb you want to use to accelerate the curcumin having its effect in the body.
Okay, Keith, moving around the supplement circle. Protein, curcumin, what's next?
NAC.
NAC.
Yeah, so NAC.
N-acetylcysteine, for those that may be wondering, it's an amino acid very popular during COVID, and yet I know people that it's a staple
Yes.
supplement of
And
theirs.
so it is an antioxidant.
You're surprising me, but the antioxidant makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
now.
It
That
is,
does
it is
make
an
sense to me.
antioxidant, and so that antioxidant helps to detox or repair cells in the body.
And it gently elevates the body's own master antioxidant, glutathione, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's part of it, definitely. And so, but also something else, especially in a dementia type issue, is it helps the body to process differently glutamate, which is an amino acid that is an irritant damaging chemical.
Interesting.
Exactly.
And that glutamate,
MSG, for instance, an excitotoxin,
exactly.
right?
So, glutamate is a stimulant anxiety chemical. Think of it that way, and or even attention deficit, type tendencies may be high in glutamate, and then so it helps to kind of lower that and bring that down. So, those are the first two.
Okay, so protein, curcumin,
NAC.
The NAC, NAC. What else?
And then,
because I've got some things on my list, and I have a feeling you got to get there.
So we talked about glucose, and so berberine.
Okay. So and what you're saying here is a supplement that can actually change the way we glycate, so it helps our body as we're exposing it to sugars to not have the deleterious effects of the sugar. Is that right?
Well, yeah. So the NAC helps out with some of that, type of thing, but also, so the berberine helps decrease some of the absorption of the carbs. From the gut, and so therefore, taking the berberine before you eat is going to help decrease the glucose, and therefore we're not going to have the spikes and get that glycation effect of the blood vessels contributing to the end result of atherosclerosis, plaque buildup, narrowing of the blood vessels. So, and then also another benefit on the berberine is that it helps to kill out bad bacteria, viruses, yeast, and it helps establish a new, more beneficial gut bacteria. And so that's something else that is a newer area about gut health. Actually, most of our brain chemicals, neurotransmitters rather, are made in the gut.
Sure.
Okay. And so berberine helps to balance that out some. And definitely there are definitely a lot of animal studies, and then starting a few human studies about the benefits of berberine for brain function.
Yeah, I had no expectations, Adam, of this being a plug for Ultra Botanica today, but with Keith's list, you do have to reference the fact, because berberine is such a hot property among all the health food stores out there, the big box stores, the independent. It's a huge, huge seller, but there's another big issue with berberine.
Oh,
right?
berberine, it doesn't absorb. So most of it stays, most unformulated berberine, which is out in the marketplace, it stays in the gut, and it causes irritation for a lot of people.
It kills off both the good and the bad bacteria.
But
right?
it's also highly antimicrobial, and some practitioners actually utilize berberine specifically for dysbiosis, because a lot of people, having listened to their doctors and taken their advice on GERD, they've lowered their acidity in their stomachs, and allowing for the colonization of bacteria into their small intestine.
Taking the wrong drugs, which completely changed the gut microbiome, set them up for failure, right?
Yeah, so a lot of practitioners like non-absorbing berberine, but the body, for brain health and for overall systemic health, we want glucose metabolism to be optimal. A lot of us are dealing with insulin resistance, right? And Alzheimer's is called, in many circles, type 3 diabetes, because they believe that some of the pathophysiology of what's going on with Alzheimer's is that the brain itself is becoming insulin resistant. And so it's creating inflammation and issues because it's not able to utilize glucose that's there, and then that glucose is causing damage in the tissues.
Adam, quickly, would you
So
mention?
This is where berberine has its beautiful effect, is that it can contribute to the solution of insulin resistance. Berberine that's absorbed by the cell actually ameliorates the effect of insulin resistance, allowing the cells to utilize insulin where they've been resistant to it, thus getting the glucose out of the environment through the cell energetically, allowing it to actually process what's there and bringing and creating a much more healthy environment for the cell and for the tissues.
Yeah, Keith, I like to say about berberine that especially for those that are struggling to make those dietary changes, I view berberine as a really interesting little jump start for an individual that may be pre-diabetic or diabetic, and they really are struggling with their sugar numbers, and they're trying to cut back on sugars and things. I look at it as a beautiful kind of intervention. I don't want it to substitute for them changing their diet, of course, but I think it's a really, really cool thing, especially, Adam, if you can get it into the body like we do with our LPS technology.
And we've seen effects with our berberine in as little as 2 hours. People that take a meal that have metabolic syndrome, their glucose levels taking our product are lower than their fasting levels, which shows us that not only is our berberine getting into the body, but it's having an incredible effect systemically, allowing all of the tissues to finally utilize that excess glucose that's out there and metabolize it correctly.
And something we learned from that open label study, because I know a lot of people are thinking about berberine, oh my gosh, I'm already low blood sugar. Is it going to put me in the basement and tank me? We learned that it didn't with ours anyway, and that was really cool. Okay, Keith, so we're talking curcumin, we're talking berberine, you've mentioned protein, you mentioned NAC. Surely there's more.
Sure. And so
let's talk about it.
One of my favorite things, and it's taking some time for doctors to start accepting it, and it's still having some pushback, but it's actually nitric oxide.
Oh, I love
supplements.
that chemical.
Okay?
Yeah.
So nitric oxide is a chemical our body makes from nitrates, plant nitrates ideally, and nitrates in plant nitrates are converted into nitric oxide, and nitric oxide opens up blood vessels everywhere.
And I promise you, he's not talking about laughing gas. That's nitrous oxide.
Yeah,
that's what you get at the dentist. This is different.
Nitric oxide. And the only pushback, matter of fact, I've been using that type of product for years and seen success with dementias and Alzheimer's.
Interesting.
But we have to make sure that we have the antioxidants. We have to have the curcumin and the NAC on board, because excess nitric oxide, kind of like oxygen is oxidative.
Yep.
Nitric oxide can be oxidative too.
Yeah.
And
so there's a balance there.
You
use strips,
We'll
right?
use strips to test
those.
that.
Really simple, not expensive.
Exactly.
You can get those. You can check and see where your levels are, that you're not doing too much. Yeah, and interestingly, with a lot of things, athletes, people that are into bodybuilding are the ones that really kind of spearheaded this nitric oxide revolution over the last 15 or 20 years, and it's profound. So this is Ultra Life Today. You're listening to Keith Bishop. You can touch base with Keith at flourishrx.com. That's FLOURISHRX.com, or prevailovercancer.com, spelled just like it sounds. It's Ultra Life Today.